And Thor, will you be changing slides for us?
Yes, I will do that.
Well, thank you. We'll give it one more minute, maybe. Okay. Well, why don't we get started a little bit? We've got a few people here, and we'll just get going. So thank you for coming to our information night for college. This is presented by the College and Career Center at Tualatin High School, and we're virtual. Unfortunately, we wish we were in person, and hopefully that will come soon. But for now, this is what we get, and this will be recorded. It'll be available on the website, and we will send out the link on announcements, the next weekly Wolf coming up. So that's where we are. My name is Jennifer Butts, and I work in the College and Career Center. Been there, this is my third year, I think. And Kathy, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Kathy Stolkamp, and Jen and I work together. So yeah, hi, welcome.
All right, well, let's get moving. Thor, you want to move me over? Okay, well, this presentation is basically to inform you and students, parents on what's available for colleges, what is the process in a way of kind of an overview, of sort of a high level overview of the whole wonderful world of college applications, choosing colleges and things like that. So we wanted to just make sure that everybody's aware of the different colleges, types of colleges that are out there. There are public universities, community college universities, and private universities. A couple examples of public would be, you know, your state schools, state schools, city-run schools, things like that. So Portland colleges, Oregon State obviously is our major public college in Oregon. We have many students that go down there as well as U of O. Private schools that we have in the area in Portland, in addition to George Fox and Pacific, we've got Linfield, Warner Pacific is another one, University of Portland, Reed. There's quite a few private schools in the area. So these are all different things that you consider. We have quite a few students that go to all three types. PCC is the closest community college, and we have a very, pretty good percentage of students that head over to PCC. It's a great option to start off college and then move on to a four-year university. Oh, I wanted to mention too, if you have questions, we do have a Q&A. So you can click on the Q&A button on your screen and just add a question in there, and then we can, I'm sure Thor might be monitoring that for us, and then we'll be able to get to those either at the end or in the middle. Okay, next slide. So this gives you an idea. College can be expensive, but it doesn't have to always be expensive. So there's different prices for different types of colleges that we just spoke about. Public college, city colleges are less, and private colleges are more in most cases. And then there's the out-of-state college. So that's something that we're going to go into as well. So you'll see here how Portland State tuition is at around $10,000, and then you have to add housing into that. So on their website, they'll have, this is our tuition. You might not always see that housing is in addition to that. So I always want to make sure that if you're going to be living on campus and you have room and board, then your total will be in that right column. So the $22,500. And then this just gives you a good idea of what the different colleges cost in the area. PCC runs around $4,800. Obviously, you're not going to be living on campus at PCC. Most students live at home. And then you have our private schools, George Fox. University of Washington is your example of an out-of-state school. So because it's a state school in Washington, the price is pretty similar to Oregon State schools. But then you have that little out-of-state price. So if you don't live in Washington, it's going to considerably raise the price, almost to the price of a private school in many cases. So something to consider when you're looking at colleges, and if cost is something that you're focusing on. So, and Kathy, step in if I'm missing anything. So. The net calculator is something to always pay attention to. Just about every website, every college website will have a way that you can calculate, depending on if you're going to be receiving financial aid, anticipating it anyway, if you're in state, out of state, that type of thing. And they'll give you an idea of what your tuition might cost, an estimate anyway. Next.
Hold on, sorry.
Nope,
I just want to point out that those prices are per year. Mm-hmm. So important to realize that that's, if you're going to go for 4 years, that would be, you'd have to multiply by 4 for those. And then something just significant is the reason that those public schools tend to be a lot cheaper is because they are funded somewhat by the state. So that the term that they're public means that state is helping fund that cost. Whereas a private school, that's something that is funded purely by the tuition costs, and you're paying for the expense of the school totally with the private schools.
Thank you. There is also something called the Western Undergraduate Exchange, which is commonly called WUI. And this is a great program that was set up to make college more affordable when students want to move to different states and go basically out of their home state. So it's something that students, when they apply to the college, they would be considered if they're coming from a WUI state. So say if someone in Oregon were applying to a school in California and that California school happened to be a part of the WUI program, then that student could be considered to have that tuition, to have the in-state tuition or something closer to the in-state tuition would be available. So I may not be saying this is clear as mud, but there's 160-ish colleges that participate in this program. And the application is directly through that college. So there's not a separate application that you would complete. But Kathy, why don't you elaborate just a little bit more on that?
Yeah, sure. So the important thing with the WUI program is not all colleges in the states identified participate in it. So it's important that if a student was applying to a specific school that's out of the state of Oregon, that they look and see if it's part of this WUI, this Western Undergraduate Exchange. As Jen said, the program does make it so it's more affordable for students to go out of state. And they usually do that in terms of what they call a WUI scholarship. And so they may give a scholarship that is, anywhere from say about $10,000, $7,000, something like that, to make that tuition cost equivalent or close to what it would be for the in-state. A lot of times to get this WUI scholarship, some states give out, or some colleges give out more than others. And so sometimes almost everybody gets it. Sometimes it's based on GPA and it's a very selective process. So that really varies a lot. The important thing is, as Jen said, it gives students the opportunity to look at schools outside of the state of Oregon for a more affordable cost. And again, like I said, it's important to look those up and find out which schools are WUI schools. In our own state, like Western Oregon is, Oregon State is, University of Oregon is not. So you'll tend to find the bigger schools are not part of it, and some of the smaller ones are.
Thank you. Okay. Next slide. So when you're going through the process, or your student is going through the process and choosing a college, many times they'll come into our Career Center and say, they have just this look on their face like, I don't know what to do. And we try to break it down for them in things to consider. So one way is they many times will start off is looking at their majors and minors. And this is a way that they can go to the website and you can, maybe they have an idea of what they're good at or what they want to think of, but they can, or what they want to study, but they can go through the whole list that's on there. If they want to study engineering or neuroscience, look at that program, look at the classes that are offered. They can really dig in to a website of a college and find out if it looks interesting to them. Other things to consider are cost, obviously. Where is the school? Is it in a big city, or is it out in the country? Is it, somewhere like Newburgh, or is it downtown Portland? Is it in a small, a smaller suburb away, kind of, there's a college, actually it used to be, but in Lake Oswego. So there's many things that you want to consider there. Obviously the size of the school and the class size, that's something to consider as well. How many students per professor? It's something that many schools will boast if they have small class sizes. Is there housing on campus? How many years do they have to live on campus? Those are things to consider as well. What does the housing look like? How many dorms do they have? Do they have triples? Is everybody living in a triple room? What activities do they have that's important to your student? What their graduation rate is, which is interesting because that kind of gives you an idea. Does the school guarantee that the student will graduate in 4 years? Many of them do that. And that's an interesting thing to look at. That sometimes will give you the idea that they have enough professors and they have enough classes that they offer that a student can get those classes in order to graduate in 4 years. So that's something to, do they graduate in 4 years, or does a higher percentage graduate in 6 years? And that's something to definitely inquire about with the admissions rep. And then what is their career center like? What is their internship, job placement service that they have within the school? Is it a robust program that they can, do they have connections with employers in the area and in the country that they can set up students with going forward there? Anything to add? Okay, so we have some upcoming college visit days that are exciting. Oregon State has these 2 open house days where students, many students in the Portland area and in Oregon can go down to these open house days. And they're kind of a lot of fun. There's a lot of high school students there, and they get to attend classes and just see different parts of the campus and tours. So those are 2 days there. You would want to register because they are filling up fast. When I put that October 22nd date in, it was still spots open 2 days ago. So I'm assuming it's still open, but if you're interested, you want to sign up. And then Portland State has those as well. U of O, Oregon does also have those, but they were full. So if you want to go down to University of Oregon to their, I think they're called Duck Days, Duck Preview Days, you might have to schedule your own tour to go down that way. There's the Portland State Days. You would want to check when you're registering. They cover different programs on different days. They have an engineering day or things like that. PCC, their registration's coming soon. They've got a great virtual tour that they do, Western Oregon, and then 2 Portland National College Fairs that were listed here. They do have more that run through the year, but they're all virtual this year. And those are great opportunities to see a huge variety of different colleges and ask questions. Okay, next slide. So visiting colleges is a great way to get the feel of the college. If your student is interested in a certain school, it's a great way to take a trip, get out there, visit the colleges. If you're able to go visit, 2, 3, 4 colleges in one road trip, it's a great opportunity for the student to go and just get a feel. We always recommend getting a tour or visiting a campus on a weekday, if at all possible, just to find out, get an idea of the crowds, of the amount of students there that are moving around. But a weekend works as well. Not as fun if you're there in the summer or spring break or something like that, because the campuses tend to be much more quiet. So understandably, you want to know how close the dorms are to the classes you'll be taking, like Oregon State. All of the humanity classes, your psychology, communications, they're all in one little spot on the campus. So if your student wants a small campus, but they really like Oregon State, well, really their classes are right around in one little area. You can see where all of their classes are standing in the middle. So it's a big campus, but not necessarily if all their classes are in the same area. How the food is, it's always a big question mark. Again, the availability of classes, if they are able for students to sign up, what their career center or advising assistance is for admissions, if they offer academic help, resource centers, things like that. And then do they have a Greek life, social life, Greek life, what clubs they have, the opportunities to join clubs and have different activities. So, okay, next slide. Keep generating those questions and put them in the Q of A as we go along. These are different timelines that your students can pay attention to and should pay attention to. So early decision and early action are 2 question marks that always pop up. We get that question all the time in the college and career center. Early decision is an option that some colleges offer for students if they have their hearts set on one college, they really want to go to this one college, they can apply to that college early decision. And that means that they will receive a response, and if admitted, they are binding. It's a binding contract that they will attend that college. So that means that they can't go out and accept offers from other colleges. Early action is a great option because the student can apply early. Usually the due date for the application is in November. And they will hear back from that college whether or not they're admitted, but they don't really have to tell the school that they're going to attend until May. So they have the knowledge that they're getting into OSU, but they don't really have to decide until later. But it gives them a really good idea, because if they got into OSU, that was their top choice, then they don't have to apply to those 5 other schools that they wanted to apply to, and they were going to wait for that regular decision time. So I hope that makes sense. Regular decision, those deadlines are a little bit later, early in the winter, basically, or very early spring. And then those decision times usually come out towards the end of, well, around April, March, April. So that's, I don't know, Kathy, you have anything to add there?
I do.
Yeah.
So probably the most important thing to realize is that every college has different decision days or application timelines. And the best thing to do is, if there's a college you're considering, is to look that college up, find out when those due dates are. Because in general, I would say that most of the schools in Oregon will either do the early action and regular decision. But sometimes those dates, can vary. Like you can see in regular decision, U of O and OSU have different dates. I received an email today from Gonzaga. They're only doing one application deadline, and it's December 15th. So it's really important that you look those up, you identify what those are, and then know that those dates are pretty firm. So if a student was to turn their OSU application in on November 2nd, that will be considered as part of the regular decision, not the early action. So just important to understand those different dates and keep track of them.
There's also the option, or some schools do adhere to, that we didn't include on here, is a rolling admission, where students like PCC, you can enroll way up till towards the time that school starts. So you're able to, there's not a huge solid deadline for applications, which is kind of nice. So something to consider too. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so these are the things as we're filling out applications. When your student's going through the application, the college application, it will walk them through step by step everything that needs to be done. So once they get started, they'll find out what's needed. But they'll always need your transcripts sent from the school, and we'll send those right in. If the student did take classes, dual credit at PCC or OIT or another school, those transcripts come directly from those colleges. So they need to reach out to those colleges and get those transcripts sent. If they did take ACT or SAT, then those scores would be obtained and added to the application. And we'll talk about a little bit more about that in a minute regarding the ACT and SAT. Then their application essay. Not all colleges require an essay. Many do, but not all. So letters of recommendation. This is important. Not all colleges also have a letter of recommendation required. If a college does not have a recommendation requirement, do not submit a recommendation. So it's not necessary. It won't be read. It's just a lot of work for teachers or the recommender, and it's just not necessary to do. So it's just one less thing that everybody has to do. So and then when listing activities and sports and volunteer work on the application, some are more detailed than others as far as the information they require, but just dig deep and just try to list just everything you've done. Just volunteer opportunities are very great to have. Even, anything, even the day volunteer opportunities, or something that the student has done weekly for 4 years or whatever. So work experience counts for a lot. If the student doesn't have a lot of school activities or sports, but they've been working all this time, that counts for a lot. So everybody has different needs and priorities. Regarding the test scores, ACT and SAT, many schools have gone test optional or test blind. And that started at the beginning, much of it at the beginning of the pandemic. Some schools have always been that way, but many colleges converted to test optional and test blind, or test blind. So what test optional means is the school will take the SAT or ACT score, but they won't consider that score for admissions. They may consider it for other things. I'll let Kathy talk about that a little bit more. She has a little more details on there, but they won't consider it when deciding upon whether or not the student will be admitted to the school based on those test scores. So test blind is the colleges just don't need the scores at all. They don't want them. So Kathy, why don't you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I will. You know, probably one of the biggest questions we're getting this year is, should students be taking the ACT test or the SAT? And the truth is, we don't 100% know the answer to that. I do know that last year, a lot of colleges were still asking for those scores, and they're using them primarily for two things. They're using them sometimes for scholarships, so they consider it there. And then the other big thing is they're using those test scores for placement in classes. I know last year, like I believe OSU, they didn't require it for application, but then once you were accepted and admitted, they were asking students to give it then. So I have this year still recommended that students take one of the two tests. I don't encourage them to take it multiple times. I don't think there's a lot of focus as there's been in the past on getting a really, really good score, because most schools are not looking at the scores this year. And several colleges have, U of O is one, that they've said they're just not planning on ever, at this point, ever asking for those scores again. So we may see even more of a trend to go away from that. I was actually talking to someone at OHSU this afternoon and asking about going into grad school, and they are not currently requiring MCAT scores for grad school, and said they may go away from ever requiring them again. So again, it's this interesting trend of how they're not going to look at those anymore. What that means is that makes the transcript and that essay and the activities that the student has done even more important. So when the admissions reps are looking at these applications, that's what they're going to be focusing on. What they say, what the students say in their essay, and what kind of grades they have and what classes they've taken are going to be really the focus of what they're looking on to admit the student into the school.
Essays are definitely do have more emphasis on them. And Kathy and I both, there's a lot of different options for getting some help with essays. We both help students a lot and working with their essays as well as for scholarships. So they can come into our center and get a second set of eyes on them and just get some ideas on how to narrow down, brainstorm, things like that. So that's something to keep in the back pocket. But all righty. Next slide, please. The Common App is an application that many people are just in the fall. It's so funny. It's like the Common App this, the Common App that. The children, the kids all hear the Common App all over the place because many students use it to apply to colleges. What it is, it's an application that was created for a great number of colleges to utilize. However, not all colleges use it. Some colleges have their own application and the Common App application as an option. Some colleges only have the Common App application. So it's kind of a variety. It's very important for students to look at the college website and find out which application they're supposed to fill out. If a student is applying to 2 or 3 schools let's see, I'm saying that wrong. So if a student is using the Common App, but is only applying to 2 to 3 schools that have the Common App, and those schools also have their own individual college application, we don't recommend them completing the Common App. It's a little bit more work than a regular university application. And it's just would be easier for the student just to do the university application as opposed to the Common App. So just a little tipper there. but it includes some very detailed data on their GPA, sports club, work experience, and all of that, just like the other applications. It also includes more essays in addition to what a individual college essay. So they might end up writing more essays, which is why we don't recommend them doing it if they don't have to. So they have to get a counselor recommendation and letters of recommendation if required by the college. So it's just a little bit more work, but if necessary, then it's good to do if they have to do it. Anything to add?
Yeah, so our school's recommendation is use the Common App if that's the only application the college will take, or if you are applying to 3 or more schools that use Common App, then go ahead and apply it that way. Probably the biggest thing that the Common App does that for us is a little bit of a deterrent is you do have to get a counselor recommendation. And so the counselor has to go through the student, look at their transcript, write up some information on the student. And while it's pretty basic information, it doesn't necessarily add to the student's application a lot, but it adds a step and it delays that application getting turned in. So we tell people, if you can apply directly to the university, your application is going to get in faster to the university and get looked at. And so if you don't have to use Common App, we recommend you don't do that. Again, unless you're applying to multiple schools.
All right, next slide. This is your basic process. So, and this is all things that we can help with. A student is interested in going to college. So the first thing they do is try to think of a career path. What might they want to do? There's many ways to narrow that down. Naviance is a wonderful tool that is used by Tualatin High School that will help students through every step of this list here, every step of the process. It has 2 little things. One is to identify the career path is the Naviance Career Cluster. And it's an answering of, I think it's 60 questions that the student goes through. Do you like to do this or this? And it's a it's an interest survey. So that helps them sort of narrow down what they might want to do, gives them some options. And then they're able to take those options and move them into colleges of interest. And they have a super match, is what it's called, in Naviance, where they're able to put in criteria for colleges that will produce a list of colleges that would be appropriate for them. So they would put in, first of all, that career cluster, meaning results, so meaning their majors of interest. Then they would put in things like the size of the college and all of the other stuff we talked about, like the graduation rate and everything like that. And then it will bring up a list of all of the colleges that would be appropriate for the student. It will first match colleges that are 100% has everything you want. And then the list will go down further to 90% or 83% or whatever. And then they can click on a little button and it shows them why that college did not meet 100% of all of their criteria. So it's a great tool and it really helps. And then you can click on the college that might be interesting, go in, get more details. And there's even links to applications. Then you would definitely want to go in. You're able to see the due dates, which are listed on those Naviance college pages of when applications are due. They also go through for their letters of recommendation. There's a brag sheet that's used, and they are able, when they ask a teacher for a letter of recommendation, they can go into Naviance and fill this out. And it's basically a pretty comprehensive list of everything that the student has done, things that they participated in. It's basically, here I am. So this helps you know me a little bit more. And then the teacher can add their experience with the student and write a good comprehensive letter of recommendation. We already talked about the essays a little bit. And then we have college reps that visit. We meet virtually. We have them come to the College Center right now, the Career Center, and we set up a big screen TV and we have the presentations virtually so students can come out of class and do it that way. Or eventually we'll be able to have the college reps come into school and meet directly with students. They can sign up for these on Naviance. So in order to do this, they can go to the colleges tab and college visits and click register. And they're able to see all the colleges that are coming in to visit. And they would take a little picture of that registration confirmation, show that to their teacher to get out of class. And then they're able to come down to the Career Center for that visit. It's a really great way to find out about the school. The admission reps are often the people who are reviewing applications. They are a wealth of knowledge and they want to present their school to these students. And it's great. There's many, many lists that are available online, all sorts of stuff where you can have a list of questions prepared. Gives you some examples of what to ask admission reps. But it's good to know. Students want to get their face in front of them. They want to ask questions, get their names known. So, and then obviously you want to complete the applications. Different ways to request transcripts. All students need to fill out what's called a FERPA agreement. And that is basically a permission, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the word, but it's basically, it gives the school the permission to release the transcripts and then also release letters of recommendation. So that is what that students need to fill that out in order to have the transcript sent. If students are using the Common App, do not send their their transcript through Naviance. It's used directly through the Common App. You do not need to go through Naviance to do that. And application schools. So I think that if a school is not using the Common App, then they go through Naviance. But Common App, no Naviance. That's important to remember. And then after the application is in, always check the school website, the college website, search for more financial aid options. Many times they will have other scholarship opportunities listed on their website for the recommendations to apply for. And then we have scholarships available on Naviance and or on our college and career website through Naviance, and many, many options as far as scholarships are concerned. And we're happy to help guide students to those directions depending on their interests and experience. Anything to add, Kathy?
Yeah, just a few things. So Jen mentioned that the admissions reps a lot of times are the ones that make the decision on if a student gets into the school or not. Sometimes they don't actually review the application. Sometimes they do, and they are the ones who make that decision. They also sometimes heavily have input into scholarships that the school gives. So we really recommend that those students come to those, even though they're virtual right now, come to that college visit, get your name in front of that rep, let them know who you are, and let them know that the student really wants to go to the school. So I think most students don't really understand how much of how impactful those meetings are, or emailing that rep, just letting them know who you are to get you into that school and maybe get you some money. I just want to kind of briefly cover, you see that word Naviance up there a lot. So Naviance is a package, a program that we use that all of our students have access to. Our parents can have access to it also, and we'll put our email here in the chat or in that Q&A, and you can see that. If you as a parent want access to Naviance, we can give you that, and then you can see what your students are seeing. You'll then have access to the scholarships, access to the college visits. You'll be able to look at the super match and look at the colleges that they put in there and review all that information and do searches just like the student would. So we'll put that in a little bit. And as you can see, we do rely on that to have our students do different kind of tests and surveys to see what career maybe they're interested in, what colleges maybe they should be considering. We use it to do our transcripts and of course college visits. So it's definitely a tool that we use quite a bit with our kids. And then I wanted to just touch on letters of rec. So again, letters of rec, if they're not needed for a college application, we don't recommend that students submit those. The exceptions would be if they have maybe an issue in their transcript, or there's something that they feel like there needs to be a little bit more explanation about their academic record, then that may be a good time to submit that to support their application. The other thing letters of rec get used for a lot are scholarships. Most scholarships require 1 to 2, not all of them, but a lot of them do. And so use that brag sheet to kind of tell about yourself. And then we ask that students give teachers about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks to get that letter of rec in. You can imagine that if you've got a teacher has 20 students that all want a letter of rec, they're all applying maybe to a similar scholarship. Those teachers need time to get those done. So the more time you can give, the better your letter's going to be, and the better chance it's going to be done on time.
And to piggyback on that, thank yous are crucial. So a thank you note, a thank you email, a personal thank you to a teacher is just very important. So all about the thank you note too. Okay, next slide. So this is a quick list, and we have this on our website as well. I think it's on the homepage of our website. We'll put the link into the chat for that as well. But this is a list of what should juniors be doing now. So if we do have any junior families here, start the research. So start the thoughts about careers, start colleges, get involved. Career or volunteer opportunities. There's so many different ones out there. We have a list on our website. Sports and clubs within school is really, really helpful. And something about that also is many times a student will shy away from joining a club or doing volunteer because of time crunches. There are many opportunities out there that do not require a ton of time. So that's something that they should consider when they're looking into clubs like that. It could be a very small time commitment, but it still could look really good on a college application. So record everything they do. So keep a resume, basically. Keep an idea of and it'll help in future creating a resume as well, but it will help in just keeping organized. So when they're starting to fill out their college application, they're going to have all that information right in front of them. We have ACT practice tests available in the spring at Tualatin High School, and then prepare, that will help them prepare for the ACT. And obviously keep that GPA as high as possible. All right, now the next slide is what should seniors be doing? There we go. So it's fall. So retake the ACT and SAT if you need to. And those are the dates that are coming up, and you would be able to register directly with ACT or SAT to get those taken care of. That one that's listed there for November 6th, that regular registration date has passed. It's usually about a month in advance, but they do have that extra late registration date. I think for that particular one, there's not an extra fee, but that's the way that is. So it's just a little bit a later date to register. Might be less availability to take the test. But check with those letters of rec. Kathy just talked about that. And just go through everything that we've been saying. Apply to those colleges, start the applications. It's never too early to start the applications. How great would it be to have them all done by the holidays and then just worry about scholarships in the spring? All righty, next slide. We have a finance night coming up, which is basically a paying for college night. So college financial aid night on the 26th. And that is actually going to be virtual. That is not in the Tualatin High School website. Sorry about that. But it will be virtual, just like this one. So we hope you can come to that. We have the 6 o'clock version is English and the 7 is Spanish. And we'll be going through everything you need to know about the FAFSA, the ORSA, everything about scholarships, and just the many different ways that families can go about paying for colleges. So it's a really helpful night to just get all of that big picture under control. And then in addition to that, kind of to piggyback on it, the FAFSA and ORSA workshop, we have one of these in the fall and we'll have another one in the spring. And this will help families come in, bring your tax information, bring all of the, we'll send out a list of information that you need to fill out these forms, and we'll be there to help you. So you can just sit down at one of the tables in the library and we can stand there. If you have a question, we can answer it. So hopefully that would be a helpful thing. And next slide, I don't know, Kathy, did you have anything to add there?
Yeah, so
You
I
look
just
like you
want
have something to say.
well, so some people don't know what FAFSA is. So FAFSA
Good point.
is the free application for student aid, or federal free application for student aid. So it's how people apply to get money from the US government to pay for college. So I want to cover that. And then the other thing, earlier Jen had talked about important for students to be involved, engaged in volunteer activities or clubs or sports. And I just want to let people know that the colleges are pretty understanding right now that because of COVID, students haven't had those opportunities. They haven't had the opportunity to be in clubs. Some students just couldn't get out and volunteer, maybe because of health concerns or something else going on in their family. So the colleges understand that. Another very big trend we're seeing is that during COVID, students' grades were really impacted quite a bit. So almost every college has actually lowered their minimum requirements. 2 years ago, I would have told people, if you want to go to a four-year university, you have to have a 3.0 or better. And that is not true today. So a lot of times the schools now are accepting students that have 2.8s, 2.7. I had one student last year who had like a high 2.6. And he had a little bit of extenuating circumstances, but we would not have seen those students get accepted into a university 2 years ago. So I would say the admissions at all the different colleges, they're very understanding of what's going on with COVID, and they're working with families and individual students as best they can.
Makes sense. So here is all of our contact information. Students are able to drop in and see us at any time. We're there, well, Kathy leaves early, mid to late afternoon, I think. Are you there all day? She's there all day. And I'm usually there till, I don't know, 12:30, 1 o'clock or so. So we're supposed to be part-time, kind of works that way sometimes. But they are more than happy to reach out to us via email, set up appointments with us. And do we want to show, we could show our website, or did you want to show?
I asked them to pull that up next. So
great.
That's what we're going to do.
So last year there was a website that was launched, and you can access it, as you can see, through the Tualatin High School website, through the counseling drop-down page. This website has everything that we talked about and more. So there is a page if a student is more interested in exploring the trades or going into the military. There's pages specific to those things, and jobs. We have a huge list of job opportunities, and those are employers who have reached out to Tualatin High School and said, we want to hire your kids. So those are people who are actively looking for Tualatin High students on that job opportunity page, and volunteer opportunities. Communications is where you would find recordings of these presentations, newsletters, things like that. But let's go to the college drop down, if you wouldn't mind. There is a wealth of information here. Wait, that's not the college drop down. You got stuck on contact. There we go. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of items, pages that you can go to. So one's there on Naviance that explains information on that we were just talking about. There's some tips on essays, and there's your paying for college option. So go to paying for college and then scholarships. We direct students here a lot. And then if you wouldn't mind clicking on that list of scholarships, click here there you go. This is a list that's been created for students to have. They can make a copy of it and save it onto their drive. And it has just a list of the scholarships that Ms. Ballcamp and I have pretty much vetted for students that would be a good option for students at our high school to apply to. So it has a due date on the left side. That column C gives you some keywords that can focus on a particular area of an area of study or area of heritage or interest, all sorts of different things. So then you have the amount if there is a GPA requirement, but if you're a little bit lower, sometimes it's okay to still apply because as colleges are also, scholarship providers are also understanding of what's going on these days. There's links. If there is not a link, students should reach out to us because there's probably a paper application that we can access, and then a brief description. And then over on the right side, it'll tell if it's a national scholarship, a regional scholarship, or a local scholarship. Regional, obviously it's kind of tiered down. So your national scholarships, probably a little bit more difficult to get that scholarship. We don't discourage anyone from applying. Regional is the Oregon, Portland area, county, city. So a little bit less people applying. And we have a lot of local scholarships that are Washington County, Tualatin High, City of Tualatin and Tigard, just things like that, that obviously have less applicants. A student's not going to get a scholarship if they don't apply. The local scholarships, many, as I said, are directed towards only our students, offered by local businesses. And many of those open in the spring, and we'll announce all of those. So we have announcements. They come out every week for students to look at these scholarships, know when they're coming up. We broadcast them. So we hope that students are able to see and apply and come in and get help if they need it.
So I just want to add, the website is there. There's a lot of information on that about colleges and the college application process. Some of the things we talked about tonight. But one of the most important things that we want parents to know is that we are available. So we're available to meet with students, we're available to meet with parents, and we're available to meet with you as a group. The college application process can be one that is just super intimidating for people, especially if you're somebody who this is, the first person in your family to go to college. And so we're here to help for that. We're there to guide you through that process, to answer your questions, and to help the students so that they're successful going through that. And then, of course, successful when they graduate from Tualatin High. Anybody have any questions at all? Nothing?
Did you put all those links in the, you had mentioned a couple other links, I think, Kathy.
Yeah, we did. We put them in. So
I don't know if you can hear me, but I know several people, and I wasn't able to use the link that was sent by phone. For some reason, it just went to general Zoom, so I had to go look in the in another place. So there may be a lot of people hoping for this information that weren't able to get on tonight. Just wanted you to know.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to do a little bit of a PR right now for our the presentation that's coming up it's in a couple weeks at the end of October. So at that presentation, we're going to talk about kind of everything that's involved in trying to finance for college. So we'll talk about FAFSA, which we mentioned earlier, which is the federal application. We're going to talk about scholarship opportunities, some specific local ones that students can apply for, more about how they find out about those scholarship opportunities. We'll talk a little bit about loans, and then how that information comes to you so that you know kind of what kind of financial package you have when you're looking at a college. So yeah. Let's see, are letters of recommendation only accepted from teachers? No, they're not. So first of all, some schools will require specific, they'll say that it has to be from a teacher. And if that's the case, you have to do one of those. But letters of recommendation can be from coaches. They can be from, friends of a student, like they're friends of adults, not just their friends. But if you have family members or somebody from church or from a club that you're super close with, all of those are adequate. It can also be just another staff member at the high school. So it can be just, I would look for somebody who really knows the student well and can really write to their strengths and write about their situation and who they are and present that student in the best light. Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming again. Our information's in the chat, and up there on the screen. Feel free to contact us if you need any help. One thing we didn't mention is we do make an effort to meet with every student. So we try to meet with all the seniors, and then we'll be calling in juniors in the spring, and we just start working with them on their plans. So you could warn your students we're going to be bugging them if that hasn't already happened. Yeah, thank you.